Hello, this is Anne on the topic of who is your inner child? The inner child I call trauma parts. And by the way, by the term trauma, I don't mean dramatic, huge trauma, although some of us have experienced that. By trauma, I mean a painful experience. But that painful experience occurring when you're very young is traumatic. So, trauma parts or inner child is created when your parents or a parent wasn't there for you consistently or enough. So, even the best of parents, because they are human beings, they cannot be with you perfectly to meet your needs when you want comfort, when you're wet, when you're hungry, um, in pain in some ways, crying for whatever reason, if you have to wait long enough. The young child, the baby, experiences it as pain. I have a need and it wasn't met. That's the basic nature of the trauma. Needs for safety, for comfort, for protection, for respective needs, caring, being seen, understood, any of those. When these needs are not met, a wound is created and a trauma part is created that carry beliefs about why it happened and create strategies on how to survive. So, inner child created very young because of painful experiences, carrying beliefs and strategies on how to survive. That is my definition of the inner child and trauma parts. Now, as I indicated, you can have the best of parents. In fact, I have some clients who can't believe that they have childhood wounds because their parents are so wonderful. And as they grow up and are adults, they are cared for. Parents seem to be there always on their side. Parents have their back. But this isn't necessarily how it was when you were really young and very vulnerable. When you think about it, we as mammals need at least 9 months of protection in the womb, and then a year, 2 or 3 before we become more independent. We can walk, we can talk. But before then, we cannot articulate necessarily, except through crying or wailing, that we need something. We don't have the words. And that makes things even more difficult because parents have to guess at what it is that you need. And sometimes they can be very stressed. It just came to mind how unintentional this wounding can happen. I know of a mother and a child. Child has difficulties. She's probably on the spectrum, but her first month, her mother wasn't producing enough milk. And her mother didn't really get it, that she was starving her child. Once there wasn't enough weight gain or something, an expert intervened and formula was given. And from then on, the child had the nurturance it needed. But before then, she was deprived for a whole month. Can you imagine? Whole month of being in a body that isn't being nourished. That is a trauma. So parents don't intentionally hurt their children. Ignorance, not seeing what is happening, whatever it is, creates the trauma. So no matter how well-intentioned and good your parents are, how wonderful you see them, identifying an inner child or trauma parts is not about blaming them. Let's be clear. It's never about accusing, blaming anyone for how we are. Now, trauma parts are seen through triggers, through beliefs, through strategies, coping strategies that are created, again, for survival. And the reason why we adults need to know about the inner child is because the beliefs, the strategies, the trauma stored in the subconscious create the adult script. So you may not realize it, but all that you say and do and how you perceive others in your world comes from the subconscious. And that's an important part of the series that I have started, to recognize how much is in the subconscious and why it's important to begin to connect with the subconscious, to claim, release the pain, the beliefs and strategies connected to early childhood wounds. In subsequent videos, I will dwell on the triggers, the emotions that arise unexpectedly or kind of run as a drumbeat to an adult's life. Then I will dwell on different beliefs and then different strategies, each one taking up about one video of about 15 minutes of explanation. My intention in all of this is to inform you, educate you about my way of seeing how you work and to help you see what needs attention so that you can heal and release all that doesn't serve you. The most powerful of this is using the subconscious, which I've already mentioned. And it's not until later that I will elaborate on this question or this topic. In about 3 videos hence, I will present 3 days of a series I concluded last week that talked about how to gain life purpose, clarity, courage, to live more without exhaustion, overwhelm, instead being directed and having clarity, having a life purpose. So that's the overall topic, but I get into each of these things that I have mentioned. So that's about 3 hours of about an hour, 15 minutes each that you have to look forward to. Because as then, my intention is to educate, to provide you the background and the information that I know that can help you become whole, that can help you heal your heart, that can help you go home to the love that you always wanted. So let me just speak briefly in terms of why the inner child is created or how it happens. When we're really young, and even as adults, there are primary needs that need to be seen, fulfilled more than not. Otherwise, it throws us off balance. And these are needs for being safe, to feel protected. Another one is the need to be treasured, adored, the center of attention, important. Another one is to feel that, did I say this? That you have some control. And this is important because as you realize when you're very young, there's no sense of control. So you're looking for control. And the strategies that you latch on to make you feel, okay, I have a way, I can control what's happening in my life. That's one thing. Another thing is that we're not taught about our emotions. And that is a component, as I may have mentioned in the first video, that is part of my offering. That is emotional intelligence, or as I call it, emotional reset. We don't grow up knowing what to do with our emotional reactions. We just react, or we don't. As I said, I learned to be on the surface, denied, not pay attention to my emotion. Consequently, for most of my adult life, I was most emotionally unintelligent. And that meant that my broken heart that I didn't know that I had could never be healed because it didn't stand out as something that had my attention. So the purpose of these videos is to shine a light on all that you may not have considered, been not aware or conscious enough. Because we are all living through our inner children, through our trauma parts, all in the subconscious. So just as subconscious helps our physiological process, keeps them going, our heart, our breath, our nervous system, it also keeps us in habits, in routines. So even without thinking, we can get up and do what we need to do. But it's not a consciously chosen way to proceed. With inner children informing our choices, there's no sense of freedom, no sense of choosing. So my intention with these videos is casting light on all that you may not have seen. So if you're willing to go on this journey of knowing your inner children, your inner child, so that you can finally get to the source of why you are where you are, unfulfilled, without a clear life purpose, without clarity. You're lost and confused. That's me most of my life, and running around with a broken heart. So this is part of the story, and I hope you'll join me in the next video. Thank you for your attention.